In this video, I'm going to show you a few different ways of exporting your sequence or your animation from Adobe After Effects. So let's get into it. So we're first just going to begin by opening up AEJuice Pack Manager. So we'll go Window, AEJuice Pack Manager 4. And as you can see, we've got all of our products here, but let's go animated emoji. And we'll just navigate through to one of these animated emojis that we want to export from AEJuice. So let's start with this emoji awesome. So we're just going to double click that to import that and download that into After Effects. And then from there, we'll go into Edit. And inside of this simple editor window, we can change the color. So let's go for an orange rather than yellow. As you can see, if I close this window down, if I just move this across, you can see that has now turned orange. So in order to export this from the simple editor, all we have to do is just press export. So we'll press export. And as you can see, that's instantly gone straight to the render queue. So if we move this out of the way, you can see After Effects is now exporting this project. And the benefit of doing it like this is we didn't have to add this to the render queue. We didn't have to change these settings. We didn't have to do any of that. We just exported straight from this simple exporter. So that is really awesome. So that was one way of exporting your animation from After Effects. But the next way is going to give us a little bit more control. So we're just going to double click the emoji awesome. So that's just going to import into our project file. And as you can see, it's been imported as orange because we changed it to orange previously. But if we go into the emoji awesome pre-composition, so we'll double click that to go into emoji awesome. You can see we've got controls here. So we'll go effect controls and we can change the color to whatever we like. So let's go back to that yellowish color. So somewhere around here. Now, if I wanted to export this, there are many different ways of doing that from here. So the first way is to go to the render queue inside of After Effects. So we'll go composition, add to render queue, and that will load up this menu here, which is similar to what you just saw, but now we need to dive into some of these settings. So we'll go render settings, select best settings, and inside of this menu, you want to make sure your quality is best, resolution is full, and then everything else here is fine. You press OK. Go down to output module, select lossless. And here you want to select a format that should work for you. If you're on Mac, I would recommend QuickTime. Or if you're on Windows, AVI is a great option. Then we just want to go post-render action, none, channels, RGB, millions of colors. Everything else here is fine. We'll press OK. Then we'll output this to the desktop. We'll call this emoji. And now we can just press render. And After Effects is just going to take a moment to export this animation from After Effects to our desktop. And there you go. That's now finished. So if I navigate to the Finder, you can see emoji.mov is there. The problem is, though, this won't play in the Finder, annoyingly. If I drag this into After Effects, or if I even drag this into Premiere, it will play, as you can see. But unfortunately, it won't play in Art Finder. So a great workaround for this is to actually export this via Adobe Media Encoder. So we'll go Comp 1, Composition, add to Adobe Media Encoder queue. So we'll select that, and that will load up Adobe Media Encoder. Now, I should mention Adobe Media Encoder is a separate piece of software. So if you only have After Effects, then this option won't work for you. The option will just be grayed out. But if you do have Encoder installed, then this will go straight from After Effects to Encoder, and you can change this to a better export setting in Encoder. And the great news with Encoder is you can actually batch export, which means you can export multiple different files from After Effects into Encoder, and Encoder will just work through them one after another. So that's going to save you loads of time if you've got multiple files that you need to export from After Effects. So assuming that you have got Encoder installed, let's continue with this. So we'll go Comp 1, and we'll select this option here, H.264. Let's select that option, and that will come up with the dynamic link connection. And then once this has finished loading, once it's finished loading what it needs to do, it's going to come up with this option here. So you can see in format, you can see we've got many more options here. So before we only had a handful in After Effects, but here we've got loads more. So H.264 is what I would recommend. The preset can be custom. The output name can change the name and the destination. So we'll call this emoji 1. And then down here, you've got video. So if we unlink that, we can change the width and the height to 1920 and 1080. Our frame rate, we can set to a custom frame rate or leave it as the project frame rate. And then everything else here is fine. Of course, down here, we've got bitrate settings. So you want to set this to CBR or VBR2 pass. And then as you can see down here, you've got estimated file size 31. If I pull this over to the left, it drops to 640 kilobytes. If I pull this all the way to the right, it shoots up to 62 megabytes. So the quality will be better the higher up we go, but the file size will be larger. So if you wanted a low file size, then take this to the left. The problem is though, the quality will decrease. So this is a bit of a juggling act. So just play with this slider and find a number that you're happy with. I'm just going to max this out though, because 62 meg is still quite a small file. And then all of these other settings should be fine. And you can just press OK, press the play button, and Encoder is just going to export that from After Effects and place that onto our desktop. As you can see, that is just here, emoji 1. There you go. And instantly, once this is exported, you can see we can now actually play emoji 1 from our Finder, and that looks great. Of course, though, I'm going to show you another way of exporting. This animation here is on a transparent background, as you can see, which means there isn't a solid background behind this animation. So if we wanted to export this with an alpha channel or a transparent background, then we can actually do this from After Effects. So we're going to go back to the Add to Render Queue option. So Composition, Add to Render Queue. We'll go through all of these same settings again. Best settings should be the same. Comp 1 should be where you want to place this. So we'll call this emoji transparent. Press OK. And then if we go into the output module and select lossless, we want to change channels to RGB plus alpha. So there's the red, green, blue channels and the alpha channel. The alpha channel is your transparent layer. Then depth should be millions of colors plus. Everything else here is completely fine. So we'll press OK, render this out. And as you can see, that's exporting with that transparent background. And this means if we start a new composition and we change the background color to red, for example, so comp 2, this has a red background. If we drag the emoji transparent layer back into After Effects, you can now see we've got this on our red background, and that's because it's been exported with that transparent background. This means you could drag this export into Premiere, into Final Cut, into Sony Vegas, whatever your editor is, you can drag this in and there'll be no solid background. Of course though, I am just going to show you one more way of exporting from After Effects, and that is to use the AEJuice Gif Exporter. So in order to export from Adobe After Effects as a GIF, we first just want to go into Window and then navigate down to AEJuice GIF. So we'll select that, and that should load at the AEJuice GIF Export. So you can see we've got render, settings, and then the AEJuice logo here. So this is the See More products from AEJuice 4. So we'll just go into settings. And then as you can see, this is our settings tab here. So you've got compositions, folders, presets, video, AE viewer. So this is the basic. We'll just go compositions. Render settings should be best. Output module GIF alpha. So this is the GIF on an alpha channel. Then you can place this into the project folder, or you can put it onto a custom folder. So I'm going to put that back on the desktop like this. Then you can do render work area only. So that's just going to select everywhere where this is bracketed, or you could just do render length of composition. I'm just going to do that because I like this full 10-second composition. Then we can go down to change FPS. So we can keep this the same. Loop GIF forever. This means it's just going to keep infinitely looping over time. You can save this as a video file if you wanted to, but I want to keep this as a GIF. Then you can put open GIFs folder after render, create preview HTML file. We'll close this down, press the render button, and then After Effects will actually ask me to save the project. I haven't saved the project yet, so I have to save it before I can export a GIF. So we'll call this AEJuice. Your composition has a big size. We're recommended to resize it or choose different render settings. Do you want to continue with the current settings or resize now? Let's select resize now. New width 640, we'll press continue. And then After Effects is just going to export that as a GIF. And when we navigate back to our Finder, you should now see comp1.gif. Now, Mac works a little bit weirdly when you double click the GIF. It actually loads this up in still frames. So rather than doing that, we're just going to right click, select open with, and select Google Chrome. And there we go. We've now got our GIF exported from Adobe After Effects. And because that has got an endless loop cycle, that will just keep looping over and over again. And there you go. These are the many different ways that you can export your animation presets, your composition, your project from Adobe After Effects using the simple AEJuice exporter, using the AEJuice GIF exporter, and then taking advantage of the render queue and the media encoder render queue to export our sequence and our project from After Effects.